Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back once again, and for the very first time, to the Farts and Crap Show, where today, as per usual, it's your host, Danjo, here with part 30 of Stick Tips, the show where I talk about controllers and, various things of that nature. And, on today's episode, it's a follow-up kind of to the last couple episodes. Brook just released, I believe, on August 15th, 2024, the new firmware for the Wingman XE2 adapter for both PlayStation 4/5 and Nintendo Switch. I say PlayStation 4/5 because it works for PS4 games on PS5. In case you guys are unfamiliar, they are on normal firmware version 1.2.1.3, and if you're on the Tournament Edition, 1.1.6.5. Like I said, this just released a few days ago. This episode is going to come out hopefully pretty soon, trying to get a faster turnaround time, but I have done a lot of testing in the past couple days and a couple things I want to go over. So, this one is mostly controller compatibility updates. They added support for a couple Hori controllers, some Retrobit controllers, and we'll just go over each one. Hori's Fight Stick Alpha for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, PC SPF 013A, P5 and P4 mode. Not sure what they mean by that, but cool. 5 Retrobit controllers. So the Sega Saturn 2.4 GHz edition in X input mode, the Genesis 8-button arcade pad in wired, which that is really great news. I thought they would also add the Big 6, I think is what they called it, the more recent Retrobit Genesis pad that's like modeled after the original fat one. But anyway, the Retrobit Origin 8, I'm not sure which one that is, but again, 2.4 GHz mode. The Retrobit Legacy 16, 2.4 GHz in X input mode. I do have to say, I have that controller. Not the 2.4 GHz one, the wired one. And I did not like it. I used to have one of their Genesis 8 button pads. Fantastic controller. The Legacy 16 is supposed to be modeled a little bit closer to the Super Nintendo controller, and with like some differences, and I did a teardown of it. I did a lot of testing on that controller. I would just say stay away from the Legacy 16. I've heard the 2.4 GHz version is like a little bit better, so your mileage may vary, which that actually goes for a lot of this video. A lot of this series, actually. Anyway, they also added support for the Retrobit Tribute 64, which I've heard great things about that one. Again, 2.4 GHz and in X input mode. The next one, I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm not familiar with the language. Wired use and X360 mode. They apparently fixed the issue with the Victrix Pro BFG wireless controller. I didn't know there was an issue with that one, but that's good to hear since that's a very expensive controller. I'm pretty sure it usually goes for about $220, $200 USD, something like that. Next one is the Nintendo N64 wireless controller. I'm assuming they mean the official one from Nintendo that's like Bluetooth that they sold with the Nintendo Switch Online membership thing when they added the expansion pack in the N64 games. Next one, they fixed the Astro C40 TR controller. I don't know anything about that one. They added compatibility for the Hori Fighting Commander Octa, which is great. It's a fantastic controller, PS4 and PS5. I personally don't have one yet. I was going to pick it up day one because I was very interested in it and it looked fantastic. However, one major downside to that controller is it has one analog stick. So that meant I wouldn't be able to use it for most of the things that I play, unfortunately. But it was one of the first like third-party officially licensed PS5 controllers that kind of addressed a lot of the issues that I had with the DualSense. So yeah, Hori, if you guys happen to be watching this, if you guys put a second analog stick on the Hori Fighting Commander Octa, I will buy one. Like, I just want a Hori option for like a PS5 controller. That'd be great. Although, maybe, because more on that here in a minute. They also apparently added support for the Kanba Q8. I don't know if I'm saying that right. AS mode, I'm not familiar with that at all. Also, they added a function update support to converter PC app. I'm not entirely sure what they mean by that, but I think I know what they mean. Basically, there are some settings things you can do on the Wingman XE2, like on the actual device. And the app they're talking about, I'm pretty sure, is for backing up your firmware and your settings to your PC before you update. So like you can set macros on the device or turbo on the device, for example. And I guess in the past, I've never used those functions, but I'm assuming in the past when you update your firmware, those get wiped to standard and you would have to enter those again manually. So now there's a way to like back it up to the PC and also like restore it to the device after updating. I'm assuming it's probably what that is. And speaking of the updater, they finally added this, a way to easily roll back the firmware. Finally. Like, before you actually had to contact like Brook support to get previous firmware for the Wingman devices and then go through this whole thing and blah blah blah. And you couldn't just like download it off their website in the download section. Like, there was no way to do that. Even if you had the previous version of the installer, it would still like check their servers or whatever and say like, oh, this is the newest firmware. Now they made it super simple and just made it so you could select one of the previous firmwares if you want to roll back. Perfect. Like, absolutely great. I would prefer if they did it a little bit more like 8BitDo, where they just have the previous firmwares on the website. But this is fine too. And it's definitely more user-friendly. So yeah, it's a simple little feature that is hugely beneficial, and I really wish this was a thing like a couple of years ago, but it's finally here. So celebrate, right? And yeah, this was the last update video I did on this. I think it was episode 29.5, because 29 had some issues. I had some incorrect information in that one, so I did an update to the update video. And yeah, I threw my usual controllers at it again for the sake of consistency, and also some of these are just my preferred controllers. Especially lately, I've been using the 8BitDo Pro 2 a lot more, specifically the wired variants. Bluetooth one I mostly just use on my Switch, because more on that here in a minute. But also, you guys may remember in the compatibility adding, they mentioned the Retrobit Saturn controller and the Genesis 8-button controller. In the past, especially in relation to the Genesis Mini, which those controllers were compatible on, the 8BitDo M30 2.4G was also compatible. And I believe on the Wingman XE, which is what the pink one is right there. It's why the color's different. They also added in one of the compatibility updates for the Retrobit Genesis controllers. So I was curious if the same was still true in this update, because before the 8BitDo M30 2.4G did work in wired mode, but it didn't recognize anything in the 2.4 gigahertz mode with the dongle. And it still doesn't work in the 2.4 gigahertz mode, at least in the standard way of operating it, just plugging it in and trying it out. Which is unfortunate, but there might be a way to manually enter X input mode, so I need to look into that. Again, like I only gave myself like a day and a half of testing. I still have a lot more testing to do, so there is going to be an update video to this video, but that's going to be in a couple weeks. So again, I like to be thorough, but I also like to, let you guys know when something happens, like basically as soon as possible. So hopefully this video will be coming out like 2 days after this firmware update actually drops. And this has been my main controller lately, the 8BitDo Pro 2 wired controller. I used to think it didn't work and it wasn't compatible. Not true. I just had to manually enter switch mode, which, yes, you just hold the Y button as you're plugging it in, and boom, it goes into like wired switch pro controller mode, and it works just fine. Works perfectly, actually. And the same is true for the 8BitDo wired, no, Ultimate Wired Controller. That's what it's called. It does have the Xbox layout, but the same is still true. You hold Y when you plug it in. But on that controller, Y being where triangle would be. So it's still the Y button. So I don't know if the M30 has something like that, where there is a way to manually enter X input mode or something. So I'll have to look into that. I don't think I have the manual for that controller anymore, so I will have to hope that they have the user manual on 8BitDo's website. And my other favorite controller, the 8BitDo Pro 2 wired for Xbox. This one is a little bit more premium, and there's some premium dust on there, which yes, in the last video, Stick Tips part, I think it was 29? I think this one's from 29, yeah. I did mention it works great sometimes, but disconnects randomly. This was a problem for most of the wired controllers, unfortunately, that I tried with it. They would work perfectly well for a little bit, and then it would just stop responding. And the adapter wouldn't indicate that it lost the connection, because when it's waiting to connect, it just kind of flashes blue slowly, like once a second. And then when it's connected, like it's just solid blue. But it would stay solid blue, but then the controller wouldn't register any inputs. You would have to disconnect it and then reconnect it and blah. It was a hassle. It was very annoying. Had a lot of deaths and a lot of games because it just randomly disconnected. But it looks like this connection stability issue with wired controllers has been mostly resolved, because I've been testing this one a lot in the last day and a half, as well as the other wired Pro 2, and I haven't had that random disconnect yet, so that's really great to see, honestly. And however, this is the older version of 8BitDo's Pro 2 Xbox controller. They do have a newer, updated one that uses Hall effect sensors, and it actually is running on a separate firmware. So the new one is on firmware version 1.04. The older version is on 1.70. So compatibility, connection stability, functionality might be a little bit different, Your mileage may vary, but if you do have one of the Hall effect ones and you have an XE2, please leave it in the comments. Let me know. Does it work? Are there issues? You know, all that stuff. Next one up. Visually, my favorite controller, period. The Pro 2 Bluetooth. This one is transparent black. It's my favorite because I own it. More on that in a bit. It's a beautiful controller. It feels great in the hands. Same as the other ones. And more recently too, on some of 8BitDo's listings, at least on Amazon and stuff, they include these like analog stick head grips, which are great until they get dirty. Just clean them up a little bit with like a brush and like solution or whatever you use, isopropyl, doesn't matter. Clean them off, dry them off, blah, blah, blah. Then they work perfectly again once they're clean. That's all it is. And yeah, it's actually still on version 3.04 for the controller itself. It still works perfectly, I believe. I haven't done too much testing with it yet. Here's the thing though, the XE2 works in wireless mode as well as wired. This one works in the Bluetooth mode. Actually connecting it for wired mode, USB, doesn't recognize it at all. So I don't know why. There might be a trick to it, there might not be. I'm not entirely sure on that. But in my testing, it would not connect. So I don't know why, but it is unfortunate because I do love the feel of this controller. Since I have a wired Pro 2, I'm not too butthurt about this because this is my primary Nintendo Switch controller. So I don't really mind that much. But asterisk on that here in a bit. It would be nice if it worked in wireless or wired. Next thing up. The Wingman PS5 is real. Apparently they're calling it the Wingman FGC2. It's coming in November. It's not going to have Bluetooth. From what I've heard, it's only wired USB, but it will work with all PS5 games. Like PS5 on a system level. Which is huge. The FGC, the original one, it did work for certain PS5 games. There was like a list of 10 or 12 or something. It was for fighting games specifically because that's where most of Brooks' customers are. They have their fusion board things, they have their fight stick focus, and that is like a big chunk of their business. So this came out around the same time as like Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, all that stuff. They're like, hey, you now have an adapter for fighting games on PS5. And it just worked. And from what I've heard from a lot of people that, you know, look for accuracy and latency and all that stuff, it was great for that purpose. But it would only work for those games. So this is huge. Because I don't know about you guys, but I have two DualSense controllers for my PS5. Both of them have drift. And I'm very careful with them too. Like, the analog sticks on those controllers, they aren't that durable, unfortunately. Kinda sucks because DualSense is like, comparatively, are fairly expensive controllers that like, yeah, it's kind of a shame because like the Pro 2 is like $20 cheaper and it feels like a more premium controller. Yeah, it's like what? But I digress. I was hoping they'd find it. I was hoping they'd call it the Wingman PS5 personally. And yeah, just it's great to see. But yeah, wired only. So hopefully Pro 2 will work in wired mode if you have the wireless one, because like if it can do both, why get the one that's just wired, you know? So yeah, we'll have to see. It comes out in November. And last thing real quick, they are releasing 2 more color variations for the Pro 2. This is the Bluetooth version on 8BitDo's website, supposedly exclusively on their website. I would say at least for now. This comes out on August 25th. You can pre-order on their website. If you pre-order, you get $5 off. There's the Jade Green and the Transparent Blue, I think is what they're calling it. Yeah, Transparent Blue. And they both have the updated Hall Effect sticks, which is fantastic. Never worry about drift ever again. If the color scheme looks familiar, it's because a while ago they released this color scheme for the SN30 Pro. And now those are available like on other platforms. So I'm assuming if you want this first, you can get it through 8BitDo's website. But if you don't mind waiting a little while, you can probably get it from Amazon at some point in the near future, since 8BitDo does sell pretty much all of their controllers on Amazon. So I wouldn't worry too much about the exclusivity thing unless you want one of these as soon as possible. However, if it's for the FGC2, I'm just going to call it the Wingman PS5 for the, sake of that's what it is. Maybe hold off, especially if you also play on Xbox. Just get the Xbox Pro 2. That way you can essentially have one controller that can play on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. With the new adapter, that is. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today, I think. Those were the few things I wanted to go over as far as fully testing the new firmware for the XE2. It's going to take some time. I'm going to need a lot more time with it. Like I said, I've had about a day and a half of testing so far, and there are a few things I need to look into, especially the M30 2.4G, if there is a way to manually enter it into 2.4 gigahertz mode, or not 2.4, X input, and see if that works. And yeah, just needs a lot more testing, but as far as I can tell, for the wired connectivity thing, which a lot of these do end up communicating as wired controllers, there's a few exceptions, and a couple of these controllers I'm not sure what they are, but yes, for the random disconnect issue in wired connectivity, it seems like it's been massively improved. And yeah, it's kind of great. However, with the new one on the horizon, the FGC2, or as I'm just going to call it, the Wingman PS5, I would say if waiting till November is not a big issue, just wait till November. However, if you also play on Switch and you want to use some of your PlayStation controllers on Switch, it'll do that too. But it's gonna do it for today. Thanks for being here, guys. Let me know what you thought about everything in the comments, or specifically that one question. Like, if you have the Pro 2 for Xbox, the Hall Effect one, the updated one, and the Wingman XE2, does it work? Is it good? Are you happy with it? Let me know. But it's gonna do it for today. So thank you all for being here, guys. Of course, before we get going, very special thank you and a couple of updates, but a very special thank you going out to the amazing people who make it possible, the Farts and Crap Show members. Val Strakonis and Aaron Schick, thank you all so much for choosing to support the show a bit more directly via channel membership. Vastly helps out, very much appreciate it. And if you guys want to be incredibly awesome like them and get in on all those membership benefits, check out that join button down below. There's also a link in the description that talks about becoming a channel member, in case you don't see a join button next to the subscribe. Tiers start at $3 a month. It's only 10 cents a day, gets you into all the basic stuff, including getting to vote on the series that get made here on the channel via the members' choice polls. It's a thing we do once a month for a full 7 days, so 25% of the time we do have one going. And there actually is one going right now until the end of the day, August 22nd, 2024. That is to choose the series that is going to be following Mega Man Zero. So if you you guys want to help decide what that is, that's how you do it. It will be another Retro Classic series, but they are returning options from previous members' choice polls, which, if you are a new channel member, any of the previous polls that you may have missed, you can still vote on those. So even if you're just a member for a month, you can hop over to the membership tab, vote on every single member's choice poll, and thereby still influence the content that gets made here for a while. So, but yeah, that is, this is an approximation of future announcements from the past. So if you guys want all the announcements as they happen and the bell doesn't work for you, I get it, the bell doesn't work for me either. There's 3 other ways you can stay up to date. The community tab here on the channel, the Farts and Crap Show Twitter, or the Discord. I always post on all 3 whenever there's an announcement, so regardless of which one of those works for you, you can stay up to date. And once again, links for those are in the description, also in the channel banner. But that's gonna do it for today, so thank you all for being here, guys. Till next time, take care, and I hope you all have a beautiful day.